So how close can we get to a premium phone, compromising features, and I've cracked snarky on Vivo in the past for releasing multiple V series phones over the course of a year, like last year, from the V27 to the V29 and getting multiple versions of each phone in regular and Pro flavors. The folks at Vivo sent over the new V30 Pro for me to take on a test drive, share some thoughts, and it's an interesting device to discuss. At once, there are some core technologies that feel like an upgrade in place. But then there are feature improvements that, while iterative, stack up to an overall better device. The core conclusion I would deliver on this phone: the V series is a wonderful fashion option, one of the best of the year. It's one of the sleekest devices ever made. I'm not a fan of curved glass, but this phone feels crazy lean, and it recalls the design of phones like the LG Velvet. They're really pretty. Right off the top, we should point out that year over year, from my V27 Pro to the V30 Pro, the chip inside has not changed. We're still on the Dimensity 8200, and our performance scores are nearly identical. But I kind of like talking about this, as the Dimensity 8200 is similar in configuration to a chip like the Snapdragon 865 from 2020. That style chip is still a fantastic performer today, and the 8200 is made using a smaller process. So what was a great performance per watt 4 years ago is even better now. Some folks might be disappointed that it's not a flashier upgrade, but this helps me show other folks they've been grossly overspending on compute power for years. This tier of performance is still overkill for daily driver average consumer needs. But we are talking about how phones improve over time. So if the chip hasn't changed, isn't that usually one of the things companies brag about the most for an upgrade? What are we doing here? Well, if the chip is still a very good performer, what if we spruce up everything else instead? The screen gets a bump in resolution and in brightness over the V27. At this screen size, I think it's nice. It's a nice touch to give us a few more dots. 1080p is good. This is a little better. Also, the storage tiers make more sense. We're getting rid of the 128GB model. The V30 Pro comes in 256 and 512 options. I'm reviewing the 512 that also comes with 12 gigs of RAM. It's a nice little bit of future-proofing, considering the chip still has plenty of life left in it. The battery also gets a little bit larger, which is nice, as that's a more direct improvement to battery life given the same chip in the phone. And the charging speed has increased too, from 66 watts last year to 80-watt fast charging today. A lot of the other features are gonna feel the same, like the vibration motor is still on the dull side, that fuzz, fuzz kind of sound as you're typing or you're unlocking the phone. And the speakers are good, but I don't think playback quality has changed much year over year. They sound kind of the same to me, but the new speakers do seem to get a little louder. But then we get to the cameras, and we see some bigger changes at play. The V30 Pro includes 3 useful camera sensors, and I love that. Vivo, you finally listened to me, and you ditched that terrible 2-megapixel macro sensor. On the V30 Pro, we have a 50-megapixel ultra-wide, a 50-megapixel main-wide, and a 50-megapixel 2x telephoto. All 3 of these sensors are usable. The macro mode has been moved to the ultra-wide, and the portrait mode leans on the telephoto pretty hard. I think a lot of folks are gonna like that. It's a nice, flattering look for a portrait, around a 50mm equivalent focal length. Better still, even the main camera sensor, it gets slightly larger over last year. It's a shooter that last year we would have been happy to see in a phone costing quite a bit more. It's just exciting to see. Vivo has to be feeling a bit more confident in this new camera stack, and the V30 Pro wears that little Zeiss badge on the back, and it has Zeiss features labeled for color processing and the portrait mode bokeh. The optics on the older V series were good, but now we also get officially labeled Zeiss T-Star coatings for the cameras here. In many ways, this catches a mid-ranger phone up to the experience we would have expected from a more premium device last year. Sensors and optics, why am I even saying last year? High resolution modes available on all three. 4K video available on all three. Those are the areas we usually see compromised on our mid-rangers, where people have to memorize a flowchart of what setting works in which mode on what camera sensor, and that's gone now. The V30 Pro is bringing us a much more consistent platform of cameras on the back of the phone. And as a unique feature, I think it's just kind of nifty to show off. We've got the new improved Aura light. A larger ring flash helps soften the lighting effect a little more from the previous smaller circle light on the V27s. We have that gross spotlight effect from an LED flash, but now we can better fill, and we get the updates for color tone. The ring flash can automatically adjust for white balance, or you can dial in a specific color tone. Just gonna turn off the Aura light while we get into this here. I still have to point out a little silliness with the performance on this phone. We still need to have some compromises between this and a more expensive phone from last year, or even a more expensive phone from this year. Like the V30 Pro can shoot 4K video at 60 frames per second, but you don't get any software stabilization at 4K 60. We know chips less powerful than this could software stabilize 4K 60. We saw it first on phones with the Snapdragon 855 from 5 years ago. But this is more of a market position compromise than an actual performance compromise. Worth pointing out, but 4K 30 looks really smooth. It looks pretty good. So overall, I'm really impressed. Now, I was anxious about seeing the same chip year over year, but Vivo isn't sitting still. This is a targeted approach to improving the entire experience, not just boasting some higher number score in some dumb benchmark app. And when I say this is one of the best fashion phones of the year, I mean that. Across all price points. A sleek design and some really fun and playful back panel options. I got this oil paint etched rear. I kind of wanted another color changing back like we got last year because I'm a big old nerd for old hypercolor shirts from when I was a kid. A little trip down memory lane, but the unique camera features found here are rarely found anywhere else. And in a fashionista kind of way, we might complain about not having some kind of super zoom moon AI mode, but that's not who this phone is for. It's just silly that I would ever be a messenger for fashionista phone users, but let's say you're out on the town at night and you want to take a brilliant head and shoulder portrait of your favorite gal pal for the gram. There's a sensor built specifically for that kind of photography, which pairs directly with a unique ring light. Kids still say doing it for the gram, right? That's a thing. So the phone looks good, and the phone really wants to take great photos of you looking good. I almost feel like by itself, this could be a whole new category of devices for me to review, where I talk about productivity phones and gaming phones and laptop replacement phones. Maybe this is the crown jewel fashion phone. I think there's a lot of room in the phone market to do more of this. We can bring some exotic technologies to more affordable price points. And when we say there's a compromise, like the chip didn't get an upgrade or more powerful, it's kind of hard to care about when every other feature on the phone got better. In tech enthusiast land, I worry sometimes we fixate on the flagship killer strategy. And there's a group of people who care about performance above all and will want the most powerful SoC they can get at the expense of every other aspect of the phone just to get a cheaper price. Acknowledging that that community exists, we should also acknowledge other smartphone consumer bubbles who want to spend their money on other features, because they're going to be well served using this tier of performance. The V30 Pro highlights that strategy better than any other phone I've reviewed in a while. So I will, of course, leave some links down below where you can find more information on the Vivo V30 series of phones. There are a couple different options that have some similar features and capabilities. I've just been playing with the Pro. Hopefully you can shop them in your region, because we don't get phones like here in the United States, which really sucks because this thing's pretty nice. As always, thanks so much for watching, for sharing these videos, subscribing to the channel. All the support lately has been phenomenal. Those of you hitting my home site, SomeGadgetGuy.com, if you're clicking on links in my video descriptions, or if you've joined the list of names scrolling by on your screen from my Patreon, patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. This list is basically the coolest collection of tech pals in the universe. So I hope you'll check them out. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet, at SomeGadgetGuy, basically everywhere, but these days I'm trying to spend a bit more time on the Mastodons, sharing photos on the Flickrs, a little less so on the Facebooks or the Instagrams, and definitely not on the Twitters, and I will catch you all on the next video.